Kind of interesting that this article conveniently drops on the day that Unrivaled starts its season on True TV at 12 o'clock in the afternoon on a Monday. They're in big trouble, folks. It wasn't like people were still on Christmas break or are still on Christmas break. They just started the season. Year 2 tipped off Monday with 2 matinee games following an evening slate. It comes with a clear challenge. By the way, started the season on the NFL's Black Monday, where now 6 head coaches no longer have jobs and has completely taken over the sports news cycle. Sucked all the wind out of it. I just can't imagine. I mean, why wouldn't you just do prime time?
Monday, January 6th, 2025, landed hard across pro sports. 6 NFL head coaches were fired on Black Monday, while another league slipped into the spotlight almost unnoticed. Unrivaled, the 3-on-3 women's basketball league backed by serious venture capital, quietly tipped off its second season on True TV at noon on a weekday. Most schools were back in session nationwide. The NFL news cycle was swallowing every sports platform whole, and buried in that chaos came a blunt admission from the top of Unrivaled. The league might need help from the WNBA to survive. That is not rumor talk or online chatter. It came straight from front office sports reporting, with Unrivaled president Alex Bazell openly acknowledging that a partnership with the WNBA is very much on the table. That kind of language usually sounds polished, but the message underneath is raw. It reads like a warning light flashing behind corporate phrasing. The timing makes everything worse. Unrivaled is not fighting college basketball hype or even WNBA preseason buzz. Instead, it launched headfirst into the 1-year anniversary of WWE Raw moving to Netflix. A massive media event pushed nonstop for weeks.
And you didn't start this on TNT. I just can't imagine. I mean, why wouldn't you, if you have to, just do prime time, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? By the way, they're going up against WWE tonight. 1-year anniversary of Raw on Netflix. It's going to be a huge show. That's who you're going up against? Along with...
At the same time, NFL coaching news kept piling up, flooding sports radio and TV with non-stop debate that will linger for days. Then came a decision that quietly showed where things really stand. Unrivaled expanded arena capacity by just 50 seats, not 1,500, not a crowd surge. When adding 150 seats is framed as progress, that is not confidence. That is a league pacing through a slow-moving crisis, trying to stay upright while the noise around it gets louder. Now, rewind a bit, because this didn't unravel out of nowhere. Unrivaled launched with real momentum and a lot of noise around it. They secured a Series B investment that valued the league at $340 million, which instantly made people pay attention. They brought in legitimate WNBA talent and framed themselves as the top off-season destination for elite women's basketball players who wanted exposure, reps, and serious money. The pitch was clean and easy to understand. Play 3-on-3 basketball in Miami. Earn 6 figures in roughly 2 months. Stay sharp during the WNBA off-season without grinding through a full schedule. On paper, it looked like a smart setup. Then came the star backing. Nafisa Collier and Brianna Stewart, 2 of the most respected names in women's basketball, co-founded the league. That alone brought credibility, media coverage, and instant legitimacy. But the flaw showed up fast. Most players want 5-on-5 basketball, not a remix, not a modified version, not something that feels like a side format.
Now, it goes on to talk about the great, and I do mean the GOAT, David Stern, coming out and talking about why the WNBA was created. It was created as a league opposite to the NBA, purposely, so people would have basketball to watch when the NBA wasn't playing. It goes on to talk about the fact that the Unrivaled's got all this new money. Well, it's just investment money. All right, Series B investment valuing the league at $340 million. Following the inaugural season when the league banked more than $27 million in revenue, the league is trying to grow that number, selling more tickets in a small arena, increasing the capacity.
They want the real game played the real way. The biggest star in the sport made that point clear without ever naming the league. Caitlin Clark, the player who drove WNBA ratings to record levels in 2024, passed on Unrivaled. And it wasn't some quiet decision behind the scenes. She openly acknowledged that her style of play does not translate to 3-on-3 basketball. When a league depends on star power to pull viewers and the biggest name in the game opts out completely, that is not a marketing issue or a timing issue. That is a structural problem baked into the product itself. And it gets worse, because Caitlin Clark is not the only star who passed. Aja Wilson, the two-time MVP and the face of the Las Vegas Aces, is not playing in Unrivaled either. Angel Reese is also absent, even though her rivalry with Clark drove huge engagement and nonstop attention all season. Sabrina Ionescu, one of the most marketable players in the entire WNBA, is missing as well. When Unrivaled opened its second season, it did so without 5 of the most recognizable faces in women's basketball. That matters more than people want to admit, especially for a league that pulled in about $27 million in revenue during its first season. That number sounds solid until you stack it against a $340 million valuation. That kind of revenue to valuation gap only works if explosive growth is coming. The problem is simple. How do you project massive growth when the biggest Stars fans actually tune in for are choosing other paths, including a league that is not even launched yet? This is where the real pressure shows up. The reason Unrivaled leadership is even discussing outside help is because of Project B, a new 5-on-5 traveling league scheduled to debut around this time next year. What makes that threat real is who has already committed. Current Unrivaled players like Alyssa Thomas and Jewel Lloyd are signed on. These are not fringe names. These are stars actively playing in Unrivaled right now while locking in futures with a rival league. That is not healthy competition. That is an exit forming in real time. When players are publicly committing to a league that does not even exist yet, you are no longer fighting for market share. You are fighting to stay alive. And Project B is offering something Unrivaled cannot. 5-on-5 full-court basketball, the version of the game players actually want to play.
Even in this little arena, there were empty seats. Very visible on the television screen. This league is in a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble. Breanna Stewart, co-founder, when talking about Project B, honestly, I don't know. Talking about, are they considered a competitor? Project B has a lot that's still in the works until they're on the ground running. No, that's no shade to them or anything. It's just different. We're playing 3-on-3 in one city. It's 5-on-5 all over the place. Yeah, but when you...
The real game, not a trimmed-down version built to fit a smaller arena and a tighter schedule. That difference matters more than league executives want to admit. Now look closely at what Alex Basil actually said, because the wording tells the whole story. Speaking to Front Office Sports, he said, "I don't want to speak too much to what's going on behind the scenes, but I've made it very clear we're open to the ecosystem, whatever that looks like for us." He followed that up with, "There's nothing that's on the table or off the table. Nothing is off the table." That is not how someone talks when they have leverage. That is the language of a company scrambling, trying to keep every option alive because none of them feel secure. And he did not stop there. Bazel pointed to NBA Europe as an example, bringing up how collaboration can happen before a formal partnership is even announced. He was openly referencing other leagues' survival playbooks as possible templates. From a business angle, this is where things get especially interesting. Early in its development, Unrivaled approached the WNBA about a potential partnership. The answer was no. The WNBA chose not to align itself with a 3-on-3 league that would compete for players' time and energy during the off-season. At the time, that decision made complete sense. There was no incentive for the WNBA to help build a separate product that could pull focus away from its own league. But the landscape is shifting. The WNBA is now in the middle of negotiating a new collective bargaining agreement.
It's probably not coming in this CBA, but it does look like it's coming. That may be true, but there's a belief within WNBA circles that the league is still at least one collective bargaining agreement away from being able to offer salaries that warrant exclusivity. But for sustained success, Unrivaled needs to consider an increasingly crowded women's basketball ecosystem.
Inside those talks, there is growing discussion around exclusivity clauses that could limit or block players from participating in outside leagues during the off-season. If that happens, the balance of power changes fast, and Unrivaled may find itself with even fewer options than it already has. That kind of exclusivity is not part of the current collective bargaining agreement, according to sources around the WNBA. The league is still at least one CBA cycle away from being able to pay salaries high enough to justify locking players into exclusive deals. But the direction is obvious, and the timeline is moving that way. That leaves Unrivaled stuck in a brutal spot. They cannot compete with Project B on the actual product. 5-on-5 basketball will always be more attractive to players than 3-on-3, no matter how it is packaged or promoted. They also cannot consistently secure the biggest stars. Many of those players are choosing rest during the off-season, while others are waiting to see which league offers the best long-term opportunity. At the same time, Unrivaled is staring down a future where the WNBA could introduce exclusivity rules that effectively shut down off-season leagues through player contracts. That is why the only realistic path forward is integration, not competition. Becoming part of the WNBA ecosystem is the play, not as a rival, not as a true alternative, but as something sanctioned, a developmental platform, a minor league style system, or a formally approved off-season option. When leadership says nothing is off the table, this is what that actually means. It means accepting whatever deal allows the league to survive. And then there is the reality on the ground. That first game on Monday afternoon told its own story. The arena had visible empty seats in a venue that barely holds more than 1,000 people. The season opener did not sell out. Social media engagement has been quiet. The energy that surrounded the first season is gone. Front Office Sports led its article with a line that should make every investor uneasy. The novelty of Unrivaled's inaugural season has worn off. That is a serious problem for a league that has only completed 1 year. Novelty was supposed to carry momentum into year 2 while real fan loyalty was built. Instead, the second season launched at noon on a Monday, directly against NFL Black Monday and the anniversary of WWE Raw on Netflix. That is not the schedule of a league trying to maximize viewership. At this point, it looks like damage control. You are trying to meet contractual obligations with your broadcast partner while quietly hoping nobody looks too closely at the ratings. That alone says plenty about how this moment came together. Unrivaled branded itself as the premier off-season destination, but it built that vision around a format the biggest stars do not want to play. The league locked in massive investment based on aggressive growth projections, yet it is already losing players to a league that does not even exist yet. That disconnect matters. They chose a small arena in Miami to create an intimate feel, but intimacy does not help if the seats stay empty. They also launched their second season at one of the worst possible moments on the sports calendar, going head-to-head with NFL Black Monday and a major WWE event tied to Netflix. That is not bad timing. That is poor judgment. These are not random setbacks. They are signs of a fundamental misunderstanding of the market. Women's basketball players want to play real basketball. 5-on-5, full court. Fans want to watch the stars they already follow during the WNBA season. Right now, Unrivaled offers neither the preferred format nor the star power needed to build long-term viewership. So the real question is what comes next. Alex Bazel's comments point to active conversations about folding into the WNBA structure in some form. That could look like a women's version of the G League. It could be a formal partnership where Unrivaled becomes a sanctioned off-season league with specific salary cap rules and roster flexibility that encourage teams to send players there. There is also the possibility that the WNBA simply acquires Unrivaled and converts it into a developmental system. Any of those outcomes would reflect the cost of the choices already made. The next few months will matter. Watch whether the WNBA seriously engages with Unrivaled's outreach. Watch whether Project B launches with the star power Unrivaled could not secure. Watch whether Unrivaled even makes it to a third season. And if it does, watch whether it is still clinging to 3-on-3 or quietly walking away from the format that defined it. Right now, with visible empty seats in a tiny arena, top stars playing elsewhere, a 5-on-5 rival on the horizon, and leadership publicly saying nothing is off the table. Unrivaled is not signaling confidence. It is signaling desperation. In professional sports, once that smell is out there, the pressure only increases. The open question is simple. Does the WNBA step in and absorb Unrivaled into the official ecosystem? Does Project B launch clean and wipe out the model entirely? Or does Unrivaled somehow survive as an independent 3-on-3 league, despite losing the star power battle and the format debate? This story is no longer about innovation or disruption. It is about survival. Unrivaled set out to change the women's basketball landscape, but the market pushed back harder than expected. The stars chose 5-on-5, the fans followed the stars, and the business realities caught up fast. What happens next will shape the future of off-season women's basketball. If the WNBA steps in, Unrivaled may live on as a sanctioned extension of the league, stripped of its original identity, but preserved as a tool. If Project B launches successfully, it could expose just how fragile Unrivaled's model really is. And if neither path works, this could become a case study in how fast momentum can disappear when format and demand do not align. The warning signs are already there. Empty seats, quiet timelines, leadership signaling openness to any deal that keeps the lights on. In this business, those signals matter. This is the moment where decisions stop being theoretical and start becoming irreversible. The next few months will tell you everything you need to know. If you want to stay ahead of where this story goes next, follow Courtside Leaks. Because when the next move drops, you will hear it here first. We've got every angle covered, every leak, every backstage twist, every moment they won't show you. Hit like, subscribe, drop a comment, and share this video. Stay locked in with Courtside Leaks, your home for the truth behind the WNBA headlines.